table legs, as promised. We're gonna do some slab table legs, giant slab of wood, usually over an inch thick, and they could do like an epoxy river table, or they can just do a giant piece of wood. Really popular to even buy your own chainsaw, mill, and cut these things down. And I've already got it drawn up as per the customer's request. I went off of a sketch on a whiteboard and then drew them up in CAD and figured out all the nitty-gritty details. And now that we've got our sliding fixture stops on the table and I've got my saw set up to the right degree, we can show you the plans and then we can get going. All right, so here's our plans. We have two sets of legs to make. We have a small set and a large set. The large set's going to be 30 by 35. Small set's going to be 17 by 28. Nice thing is that we're just going to hog off these pieces. So I need to cut basically 4 identical pieces, and then I will cut or trim those to fit like an X. And then I need to cut 4 identical pieces for the top and bottom on both of these. The large set is going to be made out of 2" by 3" rectangle tube, and the small set's going to be cut a 2x2 square tube. We will have some mounting plates that we've got to cut, some 3/16 flat strap, 3 inches by 1.5 with a hole drilled in. You can see I've got my cut list already made up. Real simple. Everything's all at the same angle for both pieces, large and small. So I've already gone and set up my saw, and I'll show you how I did that to get this close. These legs need to be pretty flat in order to maintain the table doesn't rock. One of the things that's going to be different, this larger set of legs will actually have a rectangle piece welded between the two sets. These ones, the smaller ones, will just be freestanding, and the 4 bolting points at the top will keep each leg straight. These legs, the larger legs, it's going to have a beam going through the center to keep them also stable, because it's on a much larger slab. This is for a smaller slab. Alright, so I had set this up. It just zeroed out on me already, but this angle that I've got it tightened at, and I've got it lined up, you can see that it's actually fairly close down that line. But what I did is I loosened my fence, and I actually lowered and locked the blade down, and then I adjusted it so that this was actually against the blade and this being against the fence, and then tighten it down. So now this is already set up where I can cut all of my rectangle tubing. I'll have to then reset the saw to the 28 degrees ish and cut the 2x2 tubes. But once I make both sets of legs, we're good to go. Rookie mistake. I was so used to cutting the legs where the angles are the same that when I started cutting the top piece, the angles are opposite. And guess what I did to the top piece? the same. I think I have enough material where that's not going to matter, but I might have to weld this back together and recut it. We'll find out.
Angel's face with the devil's smile.
Screw me. Alright. Totally screwed up. Totally screwed up. The plans. Tell me which way is the 3-inch versus the 2-inch. Can you tell? Because apparently I wasn't paying attention. I cut them to go like this, but they're supposed to go like that. I think it'll be alright. I don't know. Hold on. I gotta calculate. Definitely going to be welding material back. That's all I can say.
Promises that you break. When she's around, chills you to the bone. Yeah, she's around, chills you to the bone. She brings her cold, she brings her cold like the ghosts of old.
Alright, it's like 11 o'clock at night. I made a mistake. I totally screwed up the orientation. So on our plans, you can see the 3-inch goes this way, 2-inch goes that way. Well, I cut a whole crap ton. I cut almost everything with it going the opposite direction. So I had to then recut. Slivers all over me. Just tired. And I'm going to have to weld material back together. Like I said in the last video, I've waited 2.5 weeks for this material, and I don't know if I can get more in. I need to weld those two back together. Right? If I can weld those two pieces, and I can recut them, polish them up, recut them, I should be able to get my center support. And yeah, not happy about it at all, but I'm fairly confident we can blend it where you won't even tell that it was spliced. So, rookie mistake. I was so in the mode of cutting 2-inch stuff that it was symmetrical, that when I threw this rectangle tube up there, I didn't even think about it. I thought I was going the right direction, cut pretty much all the pieces, was about to start cutting the last few pieces, and then realized, wait a second. And that was already after I made another rookie mistake where I needed, see how these angles right here and here are going like a pie? And these top and bottom angles are parallel. Well, I started cutting these top and bottom supports with angles that were parallel. It wasn't going to line up. Rookie mistake. Way to go. So that's where that piece is right there. Scrap that one, and as I was about to recut it, that's when I realized, wait, that needs to be rotated. So, never fear. We've got those 2 legs set up. We've got the 2x2 legs set up. We got their top pieces cut. We've got the tabs cut. We need to drill those. So once we get those welded back together, polished down, cut into place, we will have the center support that goes between here and all the other stuff, blah, 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 done. So, it's late, you know, you want to get done. I thought I was only going to be out here for an hour, just a smudge. I thought I was only going to be out here for an hour to finish things up, and that turned into 3 hours because I had to recut. Wasting all my time earlier today. It's frustrating, but you know what? You got to make a good product. You got to learn from your mistakes. Just try not to get too in the zone, right? Sometimes you get in the zone, you just start pumping out work, and next thing you know, you're off. I got students that want to just bust out work really quick, and usually when they just bust out work and don't think about it, it turns out fairly crappy. Not that they couldn't do better or that they aren't better, it's just that they're rushing things. And when we have a welding team or something like that that's, you know, novice, they're going to rush through things and they're not going to turn out very good. But as you mentally get in the game and you think about what you're doing, you can work quickly and put out quality work. I guess, wasn't in it. All right, so we were ready to splice our miscut material and fix it. All right, I've taken the time to set up my jig table for a moment and fixtured this bar in here. We're gonna get it tacked, welded with TIG, and then we're gonna buff it down and cut it. All right, let me show you. All right, so we've got 3 stopping points. 1, 2, 3 on each one. We got it spliced right here. Just gonna weld that back up as it is. Needed to lift just a slight bit, so we've got a little pipe wedge that I have lying around. Got that nice and level. I've checked for level, well, not level, flatness, right? It's flat. Check for flat. It's flat. So now that we've got that taken care of, we'll get a few tacks. Boom, boom, boom. Get that all tacked up. And I'll probably weld this side, that side first, because I know it's fixtured in place this way. This way there might be a little bit of variance. So I'm going to lock this in first, and then I'm going to put my heat up on the top, and I'm going to have to release it, let it go, and then I'll weld that other side quickly. All right? And so now that I've got basically all the jigs, stopping points put in place, now to finalize the jigs is just to do that little notch and then rest it down. But the good thing is that it's the same thing on all the pieces. So these 4 will be the same and those 4 will be the same. I didn't show that as it was done. We have a spliced piece of tube. And I think it turned out pretty good. You can't really tell. And once it's sandblasted and powder coated, won't notice a bit. All right, so just a little tip that I'm doing here. Since I'm relieving this little notch, I pilot these corners. 2 reasons. The radius of the tubing isn't 90 degrees, right? So that kind of puts that radius in there. But it also gives me a little bit of a relief. So as I'm plunging my cutting disc, I can go down in here and try not to go all the way out here so much. And as I come down here, it just allows the piece to fall out a little bit easier than if I had to cut all the way to a 90. So just take a little bit of time, pilot drill those corners as you're trying to pop these out. And it'll come out way easier. You can clean them up a whole lot easier by doing that. And then you can still do it by cutting straight in and straight down and get it to come out nice and crisp. But it's, I don't know, a little bit challenging. But either way, there you go. Pro tip. All right. So, all covered up. Got a new little neck gaiter thing. Just seeing if it works any better than my other welding mask. No, I think it's working all right. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see tonight. Black Booger Club. Ready to weld these tabs on now so they can mount to the table. This is the smaller set of legs. Looking pretty snazzy. All right. So there's how this is going to go. I'm going to clamp these down enough to get a weld. Right. Boom, boom. And then boom, boom. I don't think I'm going to need to weld all the way across. But what I am going to do is I'll weld probably once or twice on this side. And then I'll weld a middle stitch on the back. So we'll do an intermittent fillet weld to get those taken care of. So I'm going to do this one first. Then we'll do that one. Then we'll do the big ones. And then finally, after the big ones, we'll cut our center support for the big ones. Alright, so all we got to do now is finish welding in against the frame. You know, even with the clamping and the fixturing, we still got a little warping in the legs. It's strange, it's still square on the bottom and still level across the top points, but the legs on the top have kicked just a little bit, so it's not in square if you measure corner to corner. It's out a little bit. And then I'm like, it's just a little bit, so sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. The good news, though, is because it's at the top, the table slab is going to overhang. I don't know if you'll notice it, and it's not worth it at that point to try and cut this apart and Frankenstein it back together to maybe perfect it. But I think it'll work, and I think it will still look good. Already enough has happened in trying to make this thing put back together, so you can't really tell that the splice is there, so I'm happy with how that splice turned out. Let's just get her welded up. Alright, so we're up on the table, and we're just going to go through a little bit of each of these legs just to kind of close out the project and talk about the crisscross pattern with the notch. Alright, so like I was saying at the beginning, typically when we do like this kind of crisscross pattern, you'll have three pieces. You'll have a long one and then two short ones. I opted for kind of more of a woodworking approach where you kind of do what's called a lap joint, and you notch or dado out the two middle sections and allow for a continuous piece. And I think it turned out good, right? I think that the warping that we got a little bit where the leg kicks out would have happened either way. So I probably needed to clamp a little bit more or double check that before I welded it. But I think it was just maybe the sequence in which I welded. So yeah, it bowed out on the top leg. It was just a little weird. So it's got a little arc in that one, but you can't quite tell. If you stick a level on it, if you take this level, I've got this big old Harbor Freight level. So we got our big old level on here, right? And if you can kind of see, there's no gap, right? This is all flat across. And not that my table is super level either, but so it's really weird. And I was trying to wrap my head around what it looked like via CAD, right? If I were to redraw this with the current dimensions, what would the shape look like, and how did this kick out? Because even down here on the legs, I made sure that both legs were 7 inches from here. So it's centered on the table, and you can see we're spaced evenly down that way and spaced evenly down that way. So we know we're square on the bottom. I actually measured corner to corner on the bottom. We're perfect. But when we get to the top, and it's not, right? It's just weird. It's just strange. But it's still going to look good. It's going to flow just fine. I'm going to drop it off to powder coat in the morning. And then maybe I'll see if I can get an install picture, because I'm not doing the wood. That's the client who's then selling it to another client. So I was just contracted out to do these legs. And then these smaller ones are for a different project for the same client. Okay. So anywho, I think it's about time to clean up. Good night, right? It is everywhere. Everywhere. I think we're done.